Hello there, YouTube. We are back with a little bit of a different type of video today. I'm joined by the Brother Bear, the Kaiju King, the Quackity McQuackerton, TJ himself.
We're here with a Dewey Quack. I don't know why I just did that.
We get there.
I still don't have a dude. My voice is still like recovering, by the way.
Same,
I don't know if it's
same.
like come through. It's tough.
Well, that and then I got hit with a double whammy with RB and Rio the other night. We were at the Flow concert, which was amazing.
True, but
by the way.
you still sound sultry and sexy. I sound like I have a slight rasp, but it's not too bad. Anyways.
But we are back with, like I said, a different type of video. What we're gonna do today is go over the new light hybrid archetype that's gonna be coming out in BT-17. As we talked about in some of the commentary vids previously, BT-17 is just around the corner. You know, we've got pre-release hitting this weekend. The new set drops very, very soon, and Ancient Garuru, in our opinion, is going to be one of those decks that really kind of takes the meta by the reins and really dominates. It's a really, really strong deck. It's going to be rampant, if you know, as in the competitive scene, all of that good stuff. So we figured, you know, why not make a video about it, highlight some of the new cards that are going to be coming in BT-17 that really like make up the core of what this deck wants to do, and then we'll also kind of touch upon older cards that, you know, have been in existence but kind of give a good supporting role to this deck overall. So if you want to put it like a theory crafting sort of episode, if you want to, you know, if you want to put it that way for, like I said, light hybrid. So we will also go ahead.
Also maybe referred to as Ancient Garuru as well. I'm realizing we both agreed it's light hybrid before this, but Ancient Garuru is probably just what it will also be referred to.
The poster child.
Building off of what Ben said there, this deck is without a doubt, it's like a tier 1 deck next format. And even in JP right now, it and Nume just sort of they run the stomping yards, right? Like they are the stomping grounds. They're the two decks that kind of like look down on everyone else.
But yeah, let us know what you guys think below in the comment section. We will be showcasing or kind of like touching about 2 different builds. Just a full disclosure, these are by no means like finalized builds. We'll get to them towards the end of the video, but you know, things are definitely going to change as we get testing in and whatnot, and we'll be definitely happy to give an update to you guys as we finally get our pieces and start testing. But before we hop into the video itself, a couple of things. If you like the content, you like what you're seeing, feel free to hit that like and subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it. And on top of that, feel free to hit that bell to kind of figure out when videos are going live. And the last part, check out our socials, which are linked down in the video description below. Has our Twitter, our Instagram, our Discord. Any major updates to the deck, probably best bet is to hit us up on Discord and, you know, ask those questions as, you know, testing goes on. Also, if you're looking for other lists from our different commentary videos, that is the best place to find them. But enough yipper yapper. Let's hop right into the video here.
Yeah.
So, you know, in terms of new pieces, right? I think whenever we talk about hybrid decks and, you know, the archetypes like this, a lot of the focus and the core engine is in the level 4s, level 5s. Tamers obviously are a huge part, but I think particularly with Ancient Garurumon, your level 4s play a huge role in what this deck wants to do. We get 2 brand new ones in BT-17 that are, I think, absolutely cracked. I think we'll start with the Lobo, which in my opinion, is probably the better of the 2. Feel free to correct me if you think differently, but I think Lobo just does so much for the archetype itself. You know, it is a 6-drop, 3 to Digivolve normally, but if you're going over a Koji, it is a 2 cost. And if you're going over Kendo, it is a 1 cost. So like typical hybrid shenanigans, right? You go over the Tamers as if it were level 3 Digimon. It reads when Digivolving if Kendo Garurumon is in this Digimon's Digivolution cards, or if you have a black or purple Digimon or Tamer, this Digimon may Digivolve into Ancient Garurumon in the hand for a Digivolution cost of 3, ignoring its Digivolution requirements, and if Digivolved by this effect, you can delete this Digimon at the end of turn. And it has the Inheritable, which is when attacking, if you have 7 or fewer cards in hand, you draw 1. I think really good. I think a sort of updated version of the promo Lobo, which we will touch upon in a little bit, lets you just kind of warp straight into Ancient, whichever one you are choosing to run. and also acts as a core cross piece, because as we'll talk about in a little bit, Ancient Garuru can digicross, so you can on-play to reduce the cost. So it just does so much, and I think Lobo is definitely like a very, very key component to this deck. What do you think, TJ?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know you said it's more important than or
Both,
more vital than Kendo,
yeah.
but I think it kind of needs Kendo to really turn
For sure.
on its effect, obviously.
Yeah.
So I would say they're both equally important, and Kendo, we'll go over it in a second, but with the BT-7 Kendo and the BT-17 Kendo, getting jamming or drawing one, they're both, good effects.
Yeah, I think what I was alluding
I agree.
to was more of like Lobo can do more on its own than like Kendo, because like Kendo, which we'll talk about right now, it's just that one attacking you draw one, and when attacking, this Digimon may digivolve into a Digimon card with hybrid in its hand, like trait in the hand, with the Digivolution cost reduced by 1, which is like okay. Like I don't really envision a lot of scenarios where I would want to be just like swinging willy-nilly with Kendo. I think maybe early game getting some chip damage, sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, for sure. Both are super important because, like you said, you kind of need both to do your Digicross shenanigans and to activate sort of Ancient's, like, not activate it, but get the most out of Ancient's on-play effect.
They work hand in hand, and you definitely want both. The one thing I will say is the new BT-17 Kendo is definitely way more vital to your game plan than the old BT-7 Kendo.
Correct.
The BT-7 Kendo is just sort of nice for giving that jamming, like getting that sort of a little bit of a ability added in there.
What I do think is wild is that both have the inheritable of just draw one. As we can probably tell, right, you're gonna be running a lot of like tamers, running a lot of like core pieces, and if you're not hitting your stuff, sometimes you're not playing the deck in its optimal form, right? And a lot of times if you're just like digicrossing, you're just like throwing stuff and your hand size will kind of simmer down per se, right? So like giving that yourself that like cycle, I think it's crazy. But that'll really do it for the new level 4s. I think, like you said, Lobo, Kendo, just kind of like very, very two core pieces here. And moving into the last of the engine, we've got Beowulf. So an updated version of Beowulf here. 8-drop, 4 to digivolve normally. Has the effect of hand and main by placing one Lobomon and Kendo Garurumon from your trash under one of your Koji Minamotos. Digivolve it into this card as if that card is a blue level 4 Digimon for a Digivolution cost of 3. And when digivolving, by returning one card with the hybrid trait from this Digimon's Digivolution cards to the hand, one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers can't suspend until the end of their turn. Has the inheritable of when attacking once per turn. If this Digimon has the hybrid or 10 warriors trait, return one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon cards to the hand. So pretty cracked card here. Being able to just utilize a Tamers, go straight into a Beowulf for a cost of 3, I think is crazy. And on top of that, slotting your 2 Lobo and Kendos to kind of get full inheritable effects, I think is really, really nice and syncs really, really nicely with Ancient Garuru, which we'll get to in a little bit. I also think Beowulf being able to like stun is not, or like pseudo stun, right? Not being able to suspend is pretty nice as well.
It's good. Yeah, I mean, like, you already have inheritables that can keep you from being blocked, which we'll go over later. But the fact that you can basically use that effect to, like stop like a tyrant from being able to suspend itself so that they can't redirect you. Like, there's a lot of crazy stuff you can do with it that just kind of puts you in a position where it's like you really just aren't going to be stopped. You're going to be pushing through. You're pushing damage. And yeah, it's a really good card, and it lets you kind of warp up. And the cool thing too is if you use this in conjunction with the promo Lobo, you can also then just training an Evo into Ancient Garuru for free.
Yes.
It's just it's
which is
crazy.
absolutely wild. And then I also would probably touch upon the ability to bounce with the inheritable, right? We'll talk about Ancient Garuru in a second, but Beowulf allows you to bounce. You've got Ancient, which will potentially allow you to bounce multiple cards as well. Koji, the new Koji, again, which we will talk about, utilizes that and syncs up with all of this very well, and just to kind of top it all off, gives a stack jamming, which is just like the deck goes wild, right? If you can get all your pieces underneath it. And I definitely think this Beowulf is a much needed update to the old Beowulf,
Yeah.
Old Bayo, I personally don't think has much space in this new archetype. I think it's just sort of like power crept out of the game.
Yeah, I would say this whole new Ancient Garuru package is an entirely different strategy from what Magna Garuru and BT-7 wanted to do.
Yeah.
It's also completely, it's more in line with what the old BT-4 Ancient Garuru wanted to do, but like turned up to 11.
Yeah, I think that's a very good distinction too that we didn't really make earlier, which is a good call, right? Like this is not your typical like source strip, stun, freeze, like blue hybrid stuff, even though you've got Koji as like the poster boy. I agree 100%. This is like BT4 Ancient Garuru, just like back at like, back on steroids.
Yeah.
But speaking of the boy himself, the new Ancient Garurumon is absolutely crazy. So it's a 12 cost to play, just hard drop. You can Digicross 3 with each piece. So if you have a Lobo, you reduce the play cost by 3. If a Kendo in the sources, you can reduce the play cost by another 3, so potentially a 6 drop. So on play when Digivolving, you can return one of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest level to the hand. And then your turn, once per turn, when an effect adds cards to you or your opponent's hand, which is a crazy thing as opposed to like when effect adds cards to your opponent's hand. It's the fact that you can add to either one, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Your opponent adds the top card of their security stack to their hand. And then on deletion, you may play one Tamer card and one Digimon card with the hybrid trait from your trash to the hand. And then you may play one Tamer card from your hand without paying the cost, which is just great recursion, right? And I think that's one of the things that, yes, BT4 Ancient Garuru allow you to recur like a hybrid, but it didn't really let you recur pieces and like spit out Tamers. We're seeing a little bit of that now with the new Ancient Garuru stuff. Which I think is just even more crazy. Being able to just recur out your pieces, play out your Tamers for more just efficient plays is always huge. It makes this deck really, really scary.
The card's broken. Like, let's be clear. The Ancient Garuru is so broken compared to so many other level 6s in BT-17 and just other level 6s in general. Like you said, the utility of being able to add to you or your opponent's hand is insane. Thank God it's a your turn effect and not an all turns effect. Otherwise, it would the card itself would probably need to get restricted. It's already kind of on the board, I think, for a card that maybe could get restricted one day. If it keeps doing what it's doing right now. But I mean, like a 6-drop level 6 that can just bounce something and then, unfall. If they try and delete it, it still just gets some sort of recursion most of the time. Is insane. Or it's just going to start pushing aggression. And basically just like pseudo trashing security, right? Where of course you're adding the resource to your opponent's hand. They'll be able to use that card. But it's like a pseudo security check +1, pseudo trash security, like, however you want to refer to it.
Right.
But the thing is that it saves you from whatever that card could be, right? And there's so many times, like for example, in our matches, where you'll Mirage me and the card you bounce is a security bomb that I needed to Mirage to hit. And it can very much be the same case with Ancient here, where he'll just bounce the security bombs out of the way and just kind of luck out. Yeah,
and without getting too distracted here too, right? I mean, Ancient, like we've talked about, is a super, super strong card, and it's really the focus of the archetype. But that being said, like this doesn't take away from the fact that you can just pure blue hybrid, like hybrid shenanigans for game 2, right? This doesn't take away from the fact that you can, maybe get some early damage in with your Ancient Garuru play, like get maybe like 2 or 3 security out, and then if you've got enough gas, you just straight up hybrid for game. You don't necessarily need
all the hybrid tools.
Right, which I think is crazy. And we'll touch upon some other old pieces that make the deck go even faster, which is just a scary, scary thought. But moving on to the Tamer, which is Koji. We've talked about him a lot already, but a formal introduction to the boy. 4-drop Tamer, starter turn, he's basically a memory center, sets you to 3. Security of just playing without paying the cost, as most Tamers have. Has an inheritable effect of when an effect adds cards to your hand during your turn. Once per turn, you gain a memory. And then this Digimon gains jamming for the turn. So as if Ancient didn't need more power, you just give it more power with jamming.
Yep. Unblockable, jamming. It's basically Mirage on crack.
Which is why I'm looking forward to it.
Yep. But I mean, like, it's cool. It's really, really cool. And like the new Koji, just it's good to finally have a second Koji after 10 sets. It's been so long. But it's very, very good that we finally have another one, and we're getting even another one come BT-18. So
yeah.
Koji finally getting
And
some love, which is good for the Koji fanboys out there.
yeah, and I mean, honestly, man, like Ancient Guru has always been like, I started like dabbling into a BT5, BT6, and I wanted it to be so good, but it just sort of like fell off. Like it's just good to be able to say Ancient Guru again. Like I'm so excited.
It's a cool card.
But anywho, speaking of a cool card, the option card that we're going to be getting for both Ancient Guru and Ancient Greymon is pretty good. Ancient Protectors. It is a 2-cost option. While you have a Tamer Digimon with the hybrid trait, you may ignore this card's color requirement. So it is a red and blue option, but if you have, like we said, the Tamer or the Digimon, you don't necessarily need that color. Main phase, you may return 1 Digimon card with the hybrid or 10 Warriors trait from your trash to the hand. Then you may play 1 Digimon card with the 10 hybrids trait or 1 Tamer card with an inherited effect.
10 Warriors trait.
10 Warriors trait or 1 Tamer card with an inherited effect from your hand with the play cost reduced by 4. Has a security effect of you may play 1 Tamer card with an inherited effect from your hand or trash without paying the cost. Then add this card to hand. What do you think about this card?
That's stupid, man. Imagine playing Ancient Guru for 2. Because, so the thing is you have to keep in mind is you can still Digicross when you play Ancient Guru off this effect because he's a 10 warrior, right? So if you do that whole effect, right, you'll return the card with hybrid 10 warriors trait from your trash to your hand, which lets you, recycle your Ancient Guru from trash, by the way. Then you can go ahead and play the Ancient Guru, and then you can, you reduce the play cost by 4, and you can reduce it by 6 by slotting the Lobo and the Kendo into it when you Digicross, right? So you're paying 2 for the option and then playing for 2. So overall, it's costing you 4 memory to spit out Ancient Guru and keep turn. Now, mind you, he doesn't have Rush, so he can't do anything in particular. But even that 4 memory, if you have the Memory Setter Koji on board, and you start your turn at 3, you could do this and choke your opponent to 1 and have an Ancient Guru on board. And like almost no one's gonna have an answer to that unless they already have an established board. It's just crazy. It's just crazy.
It is absolutely insane.
Like we're talking turn 2. Like your turn 1, you play Koji. Turn 2, you Ancient Protectors, choke your opponent to 1 and have Ancient Guru on board, and you choke. Like it's just gross. It's so gross.
Yeah.
But it's powerful, man, and it's a reason why it's so good next set.
Yeah. Definitely just added ammo for these two archetypes with Ancient Grey and Ancient Garurumon. But like you said, just like I think you described it perfectly, right? Like it can give you so much value, and your opponent really can't do much about it, right? They're sort of just now just backed against the wall with Ancient Guru staring him in the face.
Yep.
But that really does wrap it up for like the new pieces. We're gonna take a little bit of time to talk about some older cards that we feel like add to the archetype and support the deck in some sort of way. I think now would also be like a decent time to just kind of briefly touch upon the fact that, as we've seen in like BT-18 leaks and whatnot, hybrids are just getting more and more wonky, right? Like build profiles, theory crafting, all this stuff is getting crazy because you've got so many different colors running around now. And you're kind of splashing different archetypes, which is really fun because like really like expressivity, creativity, all of those things are really coming into play now. So there's such a huge variance on how you can build a lot of these decks. Blue and yellow, in my opinion, have always been 2 colors that you can do a lot of crazy things with, yellow in particular. So we've definitely seen a lot of people like do really interesting things over in Asia with, particularly the yellow color and the yellow variant to this. I've kind of settled upon like 2 pretty basic builds that we're going to just like briefly showcase. We're not going to go over card by card, but just like use the deck list to talk about pieces that augment the deck in some way. There's your typical blue base, and then there's a red base that will show up on the screen later. But I think this is sort of like a good starting point or reference point where you can kind of see what the skeleton of the deck wants to look like. So you can already see right off the bat, talking about Lobo and Kendo, we've got the promo Lobo and the BT-7 Kendo Garurumon. I think promo Lobo is, like we talked about, a little bit like don't want to call it out of date, but like it sort of does what the
It's
new
still a
Lobo
very good
does.
card.
But yeah,
It's
exactly. It's still
yeah.
really, really good for that inheritable. I think the inheritable is really a key component to what makes this card still viable in today's meta.
Yeah, and that's the biggest issue for it is that it can't evo like a hybrid over a tamer. So while its effects are very powerful, at most, like in if you're not running a blue base, this card is basically just going to be tuck fodder for your Beowulf when he uses his main effect from hand, or when you use your kendos to swing an evo into a hybrid. So you can swing an evo into like Lobo using that.
Yeah.
But ideally, you'll just want to evolve into the other Lobo 9 times out of 10 when you do this. But you can still do that.
Right. And then BT-7 Kendo, like you said before, it's really just there as like tuck fodder. Like being able to give the stack jamming is nice, but Koji already plays a huge part in that. I think the reason you kind of augment your BT-17 level 4s is just to have additional targets, right? Sort of like what like Imperial is doing with running like, a 6 and 6 split of your level 4s, just so that you have stings or you have XVs to like DNA digivolve into. It's sort of the same idea, right? Where you just want to maximize your like Lobos and Kendos.
Yeah, I would say that the new Kendo at least is pretty good for just some early aggression. Yeah, because of being able to have access to jamming. It also works as a decent memory choke too if your opponent doesn't have a clapback, where you can just kind of evo for 1 over a level 4 and then choke your opponent too, potentially, depending on how your memory breaks down. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely it's at least it can evo over tamers, so that's something.
And speaking of evoing over tamers, we've got the BT-7 Koji, which is still going to be super viable. It's a 3-drop, which, you can, you really don't use the like tuck 5 cards with hybrid to go into Magna, but in theory, you can still tuck cards with the hybrid in their traits from your hand under the tamer anyways, which will work really well with a lot of your like, Ancient Garuru plays per se. And then, giving yourself a memory when you add a card to your hand via effect is also not bad. Can't be blocked is also really just stupid for Ancient. So I think, definitely a still very, very viable tamer.
Yeah, and the good thing too is that you can use this Koji to put you back at a hand size where when attacking effects of Kendo and Lobo will let you draw the card.
Right.
Right. If you're so it's very good for this tamer to kind of like be tucking from hand, because I know some people might read this and be like, oh, well, it doesn't tuck from trash like Takuya does. That kind of sucks. Well, no, it works better for Garuru because you want to keep your hand size at 7 or fewer, so that way you can keep activating your turn effect for Ancient Garuru to be able to bounce security whenever you swing.
Yeah.
And you keep cycling, and then you'll still have like other inheritables too. Like you can bounce level 4s. It just gets crazy.
Yeah. So I still think Koji's really, really good. And speaking of cycling, talking about like Bokomon from BT-7, we're still seeing little Bokomon run around. We don't have too much to say about him just because he's a pretty standard 3-drop searcher, right? Being able to digivolve over Tamer for essentially free most of the time, since you gain the memory, can be really nice. And Boko just do Boko things. Little cute boy.
Boko. People know what he does. He was a staple long enough, and he still is a good card as long as he's pretty generically just useful for hybrids.
Right.
And it's hard to kind of replace him.
And speaking of cards that people know a whole lot about, Ukomon, Promo Uko in particular, I think is just a lot of gas, right? We talk about Ancient being a super powerful, super quick archetype. Just sprinkle in an Ukomon, being able to get some early chip damage and like just quick low to the ground aggression with your rookies and whatnot, and then as you can find your pieces, which with Strabby sometimes you can string along some plays there too with both the BT-7 and the new Strabimon, because a lot of your inheritables allow you to just drop a Koji, which is good value, right? Sometimes like a not a bad play would be like having a level 4 in the back, whether it's one of your newer ones or your older ones over a Strabby, push up, swing, get an early poke in. If it dies, then you just play out your tamer, and there you go.
And before we get too far from the the promo Uko. It's also worth mentioning promo Louis. Promo Louis in conjunction with all that stuff. Like, you know, they're a combo, right? Like they're good for hybrid decks. They're good for any deck that doesn't really care about its level 3 lineup that much. And you know, hybrid decks do not care about the level 3 lineups 9 times out of 10. They have plenty of slots for Uko to run. It's the reason Red Hybrid has stayed relevant for so long, because they were able to just slide in Uko so freely. And Ancient Garuru, and even the new Ancient Grey to that extent as well, can both do the same thing very much.
But yeah, you know, and then that honestly, unless I'm missing something, I think that kind of wraps up some of the older support cards, you know, that we wanted to touch base on.
Yeah, that's kind of the older key cards.
So what I'll do is I'll go pop. We'll kind of throw up the deck list for my blue base sort of rough draft right here. Like I said, if there's any changes, I'll be happy to update you guys as I actually start testing. But this is sort of like an accumulation of what I've seen, you know, through JP, Singapore, through their sort of stuff, and also kind of my own personal tinkering as well. I'm right now just looking at it, seeing a few changes that I could possibly make, but this is a very rough starting point. Again, with the hopes that you guys can use this going into the new set to say, like, here's a reference point, here are some pieces I might need, and really make of it as your own, because there's a lot of creativity that you can do with this. Let us know what you're doing with it too in the comment section below. But like I said, very rough sort of starting point for my blue build, or blue based build. And bop, we're gonna move right into the red based build here, or as some may call it, the Pepsi sort of variant of this. Because you have sort of your red egg package with some, you know, red rookies that you use mainly for like draw power and whatnot. Sprinkled in with like a couple of red options like Crimson and whatnot to help with stopping like playing stuff via effect. And then you kind of still have your core. Yeah. You kind of have your core lineup of your, you know, Lobos, Kendos, and Beos like we just talked about. So
yeah.
So let us know what you guys think of these lists in the comment section below. Let us know what you think of the cards as well, you know, and we are definitely excited to see what some of our resident chefs are cooking with, whether it be the guys at Locals, the guys on the Discord. You know, it's been great seeing a lot of the discussions that we've been having in terms of builds and theory crafting, which honestly was sort of the inspiration behind this video as well, right? You know, TJ and I love to kind of shoot the crap together and kind of bounce ideas off of each other, and we're like, well, what better way to start doing this than just maybe broadcasting it out to you guys, and then you guys can jump in too. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you all for tuning in. As always, we appreciate all of your support. Let us know, like I said, what you're looking forward to in BT-17. Let us know how you're kind of making the Ancient Guru archetype your own. We'd love to hear what you're cooking with, and hopefully we catch ya on that next video. Bye bye.
Flippy flip. Bye bye.